Mia Farrow is an American actress, activist, and former fashion model whose life and career have spanned decades, marked by both critical acclaim and personal controversy. Born on February 9, 1945, in Los Angeles, California, she is the daughter of actress Maureen O'Sullivan and film director John Farrow. Farrow rose to prominence in the 1960s, becoming a cultural icon through her starring role in Roman Polanski's horror classic Rosemary's Baby, 1968, where she played a young woman caught in a satanic conspiracy. Farrow's early public image was shaped by her ethereal beauty and association with high-profile figures, including her brief marriage to singer Frank Sinatra and her long relationship with director Woody Allen. Her collaborations with Allen in films like Hannah and Her Sisters, 1986, and The Purple Rose of Cairo, 1985, were critically acclaimed, showcasing her talent for both drama and comedy. Beyond her acting career, Farrow is known for her humanitarian work. She has been a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador since the late 1990s, advocating for children's rights and raising awareness of crises in regions like Darfur and the Central African Republic. She has also been an outspoken critic of human rights violations, often traveling to conflict zones and using her platform to bring attention to global injustices. Her personal life has been deeply scrutinized, particularly regarding the complex and often painful legal battles and allegations involving Woody Allen and their family. Farrow adopted and raised many children, both biological and adopted, some of whom have gone on to speak publicly about their experiences. Despite the controversies, Mia Farrow remains a compelling figure in American cultural life, recognized both for her artistic contributions and her unwavering commitment to humanitarian causes. Early life and family background: Maria Dolores Villiers Farrow, known as Mia Farrow, was born into Hollywood royalty. Her mother, Maureen O'Sullivan, was best known for playing Jane in the Tarzan films of the 1930s and 1940s, while her father, John Farrow, was a successful director and screenwriter who won an Oscar for Around the World in 80 Days. Farrow contracted polio at age 9 during a 1954 outbreak in Los Angeles, which would shape her lifelong empathy for children in crisis. Her childhood was one of privilege but also shadowed by illness, Catholic discipline, and Hollywood expectations. Rise to stardom: Farrow began her acting career on television, gaining attention in the 1960s for her role as Allison Mackenzie in the primetime soap opera Peyton Place. But her breakout came with Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, 1968, a psychological horror film that became a critical and commercial success. Farrow's performance, vulnerable, subtle, and deeply affecting, cemented her status as a major film star. Around this time, she married Frank Sinatra, who was 30 years her senior. The marriage lasted only 2 years, reportedly ending during the filming of Rosemary's Baby, when she refused to quit the production at Sinatra's request. Partnership with Woody Allen from the early 1980s through the early 1990s. Farrow became best known for her collaboration with Woody Allen, with whom she also had a romantic relationship. They made 13 films together, many of which are considered among Allen's finest, including The Purple Rose of Cairo, 1985, Hannah and Her Sisters, 1986, Crimes and Misdemeanors, 1989, Alice, 1990. Farrow brought a grounded emotional complexity to Allen's often cerebral scripts, and she helped define the tone of his mid-career work. Personal turmoil and public scandal: in 1992, Farrow and Allen's relationship ended in a highly public and deeply troubling scandal. Farrow discovered Allen had begun a relationship with her adopted daughter Soon-Yi Previn, who was approximately 21 at the time. This revelation led to an acrimonious custody battle over their 3 children, during which Farrow also accused Allen of molesting their 7-year-old daughter. Dylan Farrow, allegations Allen has always denied and which remain controversial and contested to this day. The fallout led to Farrow largely withdrawing from mainstream film work. She became more focused on raising her large family and turning her attention to activism, motherhood and humanitarian work. Mia Farrow is the mother of 14 children, both biological and adopted, many from countries ravaged by poverty or conflict. Her family life has been marked by both devotion and tragedy. 3 of her adopted children have died under various circumstances, and several others have faced significant health and emotional challenges. In the late 1990s, she began working as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, traveling to places like Darfur, Chad, Sudan, and the Central African Republic. Her advocacy has included public speaking, op-eds, and even hunger strikes to draw attention to atrocities. She has testified before the U.S. Congress and the United Nations and has become a respected voice in humanitarian circles. Later years and legacy. Though less active in Hollywood, Farrow has occasionally returned to the screen, such as in Todd Solondz's Dark Horse, 2011, and in TV appearances like the Omen miniseries remake. Public perception of Farrow has shifted over the years, influenced by changing societal attitudes, the rise of the #MeToo movement, and renewed media scrutiny, especially with the 2021 HBO documentary Allen vs. Farrow, which re-examined the allegations involving Woody Allen and Dylan Farrow, giving more weight to Mia's version of events. Legacy. Mia Farrow's legacy is one of complexity. As an actress, she was once the face of a generation's anxiety and introspection. As a mother, she is both praised and critiqued for her unconventional, sprawling family. As a humanitarian, she is deeply respected for using her fame to advocate for those with no voice. She remains a figure of enduring intrigue, graceful, fragile, resilient, and fiercely devoted to what she believes is right. Early life and family background. Maria Dolores Villiers Farrow, known as Mia Farrow, was born into Hollywood royalty. Her mother, Maureen O'Sullivan, was best known for playing Jane in the Tarzan films of the 1930s and 1940s, while her father, John Farrow, was a successful director and screenwriter who won an Oscar for Around the World in 80 Days. Farrow contracted polio at age 9 during a 1954 outbreak in Los Angeles, which would shape her lifelong empathy for children in crisis. Her childhood was one of privilege but also shadowed by illness, Catholic discipline, and Hollywood expectations. Rise to stardom. Farrow began her acting career on television, gaining attention in the 1960s for her role as Allison Mackenzie in the primetime soap opera Peyton Place. But her breakout came with Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, 1968, a psychological horror film that became a critical and commercial success. Farrow's performance, vulnerable, subtle, and deeply affecting, cemented her status as a major film star. Around this time, she married Frank Sinatra, who was 30 years her senior. The marriage lasted only 2 years, reportedly ending during the filming of Rosemary's Baby, when she refused to quit the production at Sinatra's request. Partnership with Woody Allen from the early 1980s through the early 1990s. Farrow became best known for her collaboration with Woody Allen, with whom she also had a romantic relationship. They made 13 films together, many of which are considered among Allen's finest, including The Purple Rose of Cairo, 1985, Hannah and Her Sisters, 1986, Crimes and Misdemeanors, 1989, Alice, 1990. Farrow brought a grounded emotional complexity to Allen's often cerebral scripts, and she helped define the tone of his mid-career work. Personal turmoil and public scandal. In 1992, Farrow and Allen's relationship ended in a highly public and deeply troubling scandal. Farrow discovered Allen had begun a relationship with her adopted daughter Soon-Yi Previn, who was approximately 21 at the time. This revelation led to an acrimonious custody battle over their 3 children, during which Farrow also accused Allen of molesting their 7-year-old daughter. Dylan Farrow, allegations Allen has always denied and which remain controversial and contested to this day. The fallout led to Farrow largely withdrawing from mainstream film work. She became more focused on raising her large family and turning her attention to activism. Motherhood and humanitarian work. Mia Farrow is the mother of 14 children, both biological and adopted. Many from countries ravaged by poverty or conflict. Her family life has been marked by both devotion and tragedy. 3 of her adopted children have died under various circumstances, and several others have faced significant health and emotional challenges. In the late 1990s, she began working as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, traveling to places like Darfur, Chad, Sudan, and the Central African Republic. Her advocacy has included public speaking, op-eds, and even hunger strikes to draw attention to atrocities. She has testified before the U.S. Congress and the United Nations and has become a respected voice in humanitarian circles. Later years and legacy. Though less active in Hollywood, Farrow has occasionally returned to the screen, such as in Todd Solondz's Dark Horse, 2011, and in TV appearances like the Omen miniseries remake. Public perception of Farrow has shifted over the years, influenced by changing societal attitudes. The rise of the #MeToo movement, and renewed media scrutiny, especially with the 2021 HBO documentary Allen vs. Farrow, which re-examined the allegations involving Woody Allen and Dylan Farrow, giving more weight to Mia's version of events. Legacy. Mia Farrow's legacy is one of complexity. As an actress, she was once the face of a generation's anxiety and introspection. As a mother, she is both praised and critiqued for her unconventional, sprawling family. As a humanitarian, she is deeply respected for using her fame to advocate for those with no voice. She remains a figure of enduring intrigue, graceful, fragile, resilient, and fiercely devoted to what she believes is right. Artistic style and influence. Mia Farrow's acting style has often been described as delicate but emotionally potent. She doesn't overpower the screen. Rather, she draws the viewer in, inviting empathy. Her characters often seem fragile on the surface but are driven by an internal toughness, a quality that mirrored her real-life resilience. In Rosemary's Baby, for instance, her portrayal of paranoia and isolation feels chillingly real. Critics have praised how she makes complex emotions look natural, especially in roles that explore a woman's place in a world controlled by men, or themes of betrayal, uncertainty, and loss of innocence. Because of her look, the famous pixie haircut, originally styled by Vidal Sassoon, and her vulnerable persona, Farrow became a style icon of the late 1960s, representing a new kind of femininity. Sensitive, modern, and quietly rebellious. Influence. Farrow's portrayal of fragile but determined women helped open doors for later actresses to explore roles that were psychologically deep without being overtly strong in the traditional sense. She made internal struggle visible. The family dynamic. A deeper look. Mia Farrow's family is an epic story in itself. She adopted many children from disadvantaged backgrounds, including children with disabilities. She gave biological birth to 4 children, including Roman Farrow, who later became an acclaimed journalist. Some of her children, like Ronan and Dylan Farrow, have spoken publicly about their support for her. Others, like Moses Farrow, have criticized her parenting, accusing her of being controlling and emotionally manipulative. Multiple tragedies have hit her family: accidental deaths, illnesses, and mental health struggles. These complexities mean that Farrow is seen by some as a saintly figure, while others view her family life as chaotic and fraught. The Woody Allen controversy expanded. The scandal involving Woody Allen and Farrow has haunted both of their legacies for over 3 decades. Soon-Yi Previn was the adopted daughter of Farrow and her former partner, conductor Andre Previn. Her relationship with Allen, who had been a father figure in her life for many years, stunned the world. The custody battle that followed was brutal. Farrow accused Allen not only of betrayal but of abuse, particularly concerning their adopted daughter Dylan. Investigations by child welfare agencies were conducted. No definitive conclusions of abuse were made at the time, but public opinion largely sided with Farrow in the 1990s. The release of Allen v. Farrow in 2021 reignited public sympathy for Farrow and Dylan Farrow, especially in the post-#MeToo climate. Today, the court of public opinion tends to view Farrow as a wronged woman who used her platform to fight for her children's safety, although there are still dissenting voices. Humanitarian career. Not just a celebrity cause. Mia Farrow isn't a celebrity who lent her name to causes for PR. She genuinely embedded herself in the issues. She traveled repeatedly to Darfur, sometimes at great personal risk. She staged a hunger strike in 2009 to raise awareness about the plight of refugees. Farrow also documented her trips through blogs and photography, bringing first-hand accounts of suffering to Western audiences. She has been recognized by many human rights groups, though she rarely seeks awards or acclaim for this work. Her humanitarian mission is deeply tied to her Catholic upbringing, a sense of moral duty to help the least among us. Later life. The private public figure now mostly retired from acting. Mia Farrow lives quietly in Connecticut. She remains fiercely protective of her children and grandchildren, occasionally posting updates and reflections online, especially about world crises. She remains one of the rare celebrities who moved beyond fame to attempt real-world change. In interviews, Farrow is reflective but rarely bitter. She acknowledges her life's pain, but frames it as a call to greater compassion. Her ability to maintain dignity in the face of relentless public scrutiny is often cited as one of her most admirable traits. Mia Farrow today. An icon of fragile strength. Mia Farrow represents something rare in American culture. A woman who lived in the spotlight but tried to use it for something larger than herself. An artist whose most enduring role might not be in film, but in her fierce defense of the vulnerable. Even now, at nearly 80 years old, she is seen as a figure of conscience, albeit one surrounded by the messy, complicated realities of life. Acting style and influence. Mia Farrow's acting was never about bombast or melodrama. Her performances are often marked by an understated intensity, a vulnerability that feels raw and authentic. In Rosemary's Baby, her physical transformation, losing weight, chopping her hair into a now iconic pixie cut, became part of the story's claustrophobic horror. She could convey fragile strength, inner torment, and quiet rebellion better than almost any of her peers. Critics often describe her screen presence as ethereal, but that delicate exterior masked a very cerebral, emotionally intelligent performer. Directors like Roman Polanski and Woody Allen relied on her ability to create characters who were both relatable and enigmatic. In films like Hannah and Her Sisters, she brought depth to roles that could have easily been overshadowed by flashier performances. Farrow's influence is visible today in actresses like Saoirse Ronan and Rooney Mara, whose performances combine fragility with steely resilience. Humanitarian philosophy Mia Farrow has repeatedly said that fame was a tool, not an end in itself. After the scandals of the early 1990s, she shifted almost all her public energy toward humanitarian work, especially children affected by war, famine, and disease. She traveled extensively to some of the world's most dangerous regions. She visited Darfur multiple times during the genocide crisis. She undertook a hunger strike in 2009 to raise awareness for displaced people in Sudan. She has spoken out against governments and corporations complicit in human rights abuses, often at personal risk. Her advocacy is highly personal. She often uses stories and photographs of children she meets, emphasizing individual dignity over statistics. Farrow's activism predates much of the current celebrity humanitarianism wave, and in many ways, she set a model for how stars could use their platforms for serious causes without centering themselves. Family tragedies and challenges Mia Farrow's personal life has been filled with profound tragedies. Lark Previn, her adopted daughter, died in 2008 after years of health struggles. Thaddeus Farrow, another adopted son, died by suicide in 2016. Tam Farrow died at 21 from heart failure reportedly linked to long-standing health issues. Managing a family of 14 children, many with disabilities, was by any measure an extraordinary challenge. Farrow has acknowledged that while her home was full of love, it was also chaotic and sometimes difficult. In recent years, there has been criticism from some of her children, notably Moses Farrow, who have challenged the narrative she presents about their upbringing, painting a more complicated picture. Nevertheless, many others, like Dylan Farrow and Ronan Farrow, have publicly praised her as a protective, loving mother. Relationship with Frank Sinatra. Her relationship with Sinatra continues to fascinate. They married when she was just 21 and he was 50. Their marriage was short but intense. Farrow has described him as the love of her life. Remarkably, even after their divorce, they remained close until Sinatra's death in 1998. Farrow has hinted that there was never real closure to their relationship, a poignant, unfinished chapter in her personal mythology. In 2013, during a Vanity Fair interview, Farrow made headlines when she suggested that her son Ronan Farrow might, possibly, be Sinatra's biological child, not Woody Allen's. The comment fueled endless speculation but remains unresolved. Cultural impact. Mia Farrow's impact isn't just cinematic or humanitarian, it's symbolic. She represents the shift from 1950s, perfect Hollywood women to the more complex, damaged, real women of 1970s film. The growing role of celebrity activism rooted in real fieldwork, not just photo ops. A survivor's resilience in the face of devastating personal and public betrayal. In today's world, where public figures are constantly judged for every choice, Farrow's life stands as a reminder that human lives, especially complicated, painful ones, can't be reduced to simple headlines. If you want, I can also dive into a list of her best performances, ranked a profile of her children and where they are now, a breakdown of her activism work region by region, or an analysis of how the Woody Allen scandal affected public opinion over decades. Ronan Farrow, a new generation of advocacy. One of Mia's most prominent children, Ronan Farrow, has become a significant public figure in his own right, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist known for breaking key stories in the #MeToo movement, particularly the exposés on Harvey Weinstein. Ronan has credited his mother with instilling in him a sense of justice and moral clarity. In many ways, Ronan's work continues the ethical legacy of his mother's humanitarian activism, though through journalism rather than fieldwork. His support for his sister Dylan Farrow, and his public break with Woody Allen, also underscores the tight bond between Mia and the children who share her account of what happened in the early 1990s. Through Ronan, Mia Farrow's influence stretches into political and cultural spheres far beyond entertainment. Dylan Farrow and the evolution of public awareness for years. Dylan Farrow's allegation that Woody Allen sexually abused her as a child was dismissed or minimized by much of the media establishment. Mia stood by Dylan from the beginning, despite enormous personal and professional cost. At a time when few women were believed, Mia's unwavering belief in her daughter laid early groundwork for the kind of survivor advocacy that has gained momentum in recent years. When Dylan published her open letter in the New York Times in 2014, and again in the 2021 Allen vs. Farrow docuseries, public opinion began to shift. Suddenly, what had long been treated as an unresolved scandal was reconsidered in light of new cultural values. For many, this reevaluation was also a vindication of Mia Farrow's actions, beliefs, and protective instincts. Her children, a wide spectrum of stories. Mia Farrow's family has always defied Hollywood norms. She adopted many of her children from war zones, impoverished countries, or orphanages, often taking on children with special needs. Her home was a patchwork of different cultures, abilities, and stories, beautiful and chaotic. Some of her children, like Ronan Farrow, journalist, lawyer, former Rhodes Scholar, Dylan Farrow, writer and public speaker, have flourished in public life. Others, like Moses Farrow, have offered dissenting views, accusing Mia of being emotionally abusive, claims she strongly denies. These conflicting accounts have sparked public debates over memory, trauma, parenting, and truth. What's clear is that Mia Farrow's family was never conventional. She aimed to offer love and stability to children who had been abandoned, neglected, or harmed, and though not all stories ended well, her ambition to build a family rooted in compassion was extraordinary in scale and intention. Enduring as a symbol, the Madonna and the Witch Mia Farrow has, at times, been cast in sharply binary terms, either the saintly mother or the manipulative ex-lover. These gendered archetypes reflect how society often treats women who accuse powerful men or deviate from traditional roles. She's become a case study in media framing. In the 1990s, many stories painted her as bitter or vengeful. In the 2010s, she was seen as a mother warrior, standing up to an entrenched system. Now, cultural critics view her as a complex, morally courageous figure, who may have paid a heavy price for telling an inconvenient truth too early. Her life reflects how our understanding of abuse, family, and trauma has evolved, and how women who speak out are often punished first and believed later. Late career and re-emergence. While Farrow has largely stepped away from acting, she has made a few select appearances. In the 2016 Broadway revival of Love Letters, and in small film projects, she's shown she hasn't lost her quiet power as a performer. More importantly, she's become a source of moral gravity in public life, not for flashy activism, but for long-term commitment, humility, and resilience. Final reflection. A life unfolding in public and private. Mia Farrow is not a woman who fits easily into categories. She is a screen icon of the late 60s and 70s, a survivor of personal betrayal and media vilification, a mother to a large, complex family, with triumphs and sorrows in equal measure, a tireless humanitarian and witness to the suffering of the world's forgotten children. She didn't chase celebrity, she used it. And while others traded glamour for political posturing, Farrow disappeared into some of the most dangerous places on earth to amplify the voices of the powerless. In that sense, Mia Farrow isn't just a former movie star. She's a blueprint for how fame can be repurposed into something quietly radical, and for how a life lived with conviction often resists easy judgment. Mia Farrow's faith, morality, and inner compass. Raised in a devout Roman Catholic household, Mia Farrow's spiritual life has had a profound impact on her ethics and worldview. Though she has not always spoken publicly about her faith, it has quietly shaped her choices, from her humanitarian work to her emphasis on forgiveness and compassion, even amid public betrayal. She has been described by friends and journalists as deeply moral without being sanctimonious. Her choices, adopting children with disabilities, traveling to war zones, and supporting human rights causes, seem driven less by political ideology and more by a consistent personal philosophy rooted in service and care. Her advocacy, in fact, often eschews slogans and partisanship. She focuses instead on the concrete suffering of children, using her platform to describe faces, names, and stories, not statistics. This makes her humanitarianism feel intimate and morally grounded. Cultural style icon. The power of fragility. In the late 1960s, Farrow became a fashion icon almost accidentally. Her thin frame, pale skin, and wide eyes stood in stark contrast to the voluptuous Hollywood bombshells of the era. When Vidal Sassoon gave her the pixie cut for Rosemary's Baby, it became instantly legendary, rebellious, androgynous, and hauntingly feminine all at once. Farrow's style was minimalist, bohemian, and often unadorned, a reflection of her naturalist sensibility and preference for understatement. She inspired designers, models, and photographers. In the same way Audrey Hepburn defined an earlier generation's elegance, Farrow came to represent a cooler, more introspective kind of beauty. Even today, her image from Rosemary's Baby, pale, pregnant, gaunt, and haunted, remains one of the most iconic in film history. Her place in cinema history. Though Mia Farrow never had a blockbuster-driven career, she carved out a unique place in film history. She ushered in a new kind of horror heroine, vulnerable, intelligent, and emotionally real, with Rosemary's Baby. She collaborated with some of cinema's most revered auteurs, including Roman Polanski, Woody Allen, and Robert Altman. She embodied that new Hollywood shift from glamorized roles to complex, often emotionally tortured women. Her performances were never technical showpieces, they were immersive, emotionally instinctual. Farrow wasn't interested in wowing audiences. She seemed to be inviting them into a shared psychological space, making even the most surreal stories feel believable. Some of her most underrated performances include See No Evil, 1971, a suspense thriller where she plays a blind woman stalked by a killer. The Haunting of Julia, 1977, a slow-burn psychological horror film with emotional depth. Alice, 1990, where she subtly deconstructs wealth, desire, and self-worth. The enigma and the myth. As Farrow has aged, she has deliberately receded from celebrity culture, which only enhances the mythos surrounding her. Unlike many of her peers, she has refused memoir deals, splashy interviews, or public redemption arcs. This absence has allowed the world to fill in the blanks, turning her life into something close to modern mythology. The innocent girl married to a legend, Sinatra. The muse and then accuser of a genius filmmaker, Alan. The mother to a sprawling, tragic, extraordinary family. The actress who could have chased more fame but instead chose to go where few celebrities ever venture, refugee camps, war zones, slums. We know her primarily through glimpses, photographs, court transcripts, brief interviews, and the echoes of her performances. And that mystery has kept public interest alive. Unresolved tensions. Mia Farrow's legacy, though increasingly admired, is not without questions. How do we reconcile the conflicting testimonies from her children? Has the media corrected its earlier mistreatment of her, or just reversed its polarity without reflection? What toll has her life taken, and what does it say about our expectations of women, mothers, and public figures? What is clear is that she lived boldly, privately, and with immense moral conviction in an industry and era that rarely rewarded such choices. Conclusion. An enduring figure of conscience. Mia Farrow may never receive a Lifetime Achievement Oscar or dominate awards retrospectives, but her legacy is something more rare. A moral narrative in an amoral business. She taught audiences that horror could be intimate, motherhood could be expansive and world-changing, beauty could be intelligent, haunted, and political, and survival, in the face of betrayal and tragedy, could be quiet, determined, and sacred.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching.